So, before we dive right into all of the actionable content, all the things that are going to transform your clinic, I think it's really important to talk about one thing first, and that's to completely get the mindset right. Because what I want to talk to you about now is the thing that really slowed down the growth of my business more than anything else. My aim for you and working with you in this tribe is to get your business to the level that you want it to be within a year. But it's taken me 12 years to reach this point. And I think probably the biggest reason that it took me so long was because I suffered from what's called Imposter Syndrome. So what I want to do first is explain, if you're not familiar with Imposter Syndrome, what that is and why it can be so damaging. And then I want to talk about some examples of how it affected me and how even now I have to try and get rid of Imposter Syndrome with new things that I'm launching. So Imposter Syndrome, now this is where we suffer with this fear of almost being a fraud or not having the knowledge or not having the appropriate expertise to be able to provide to somebody in the setting that we're looking to place ourselves in. And this was something that I always suffered with when I started out. And so I always felt that there were clinics doing it better than me, that there were people more experienced than me, that there were people that could give more value to clients. And so as a result, I restricted myself. I almost wanted to be a service that was perceived as not being as good as others, but that it was the right market for those people on things like price point. So let me explain about 3 examples where I think it really held me back. Firstly, the website. Now, I was somebody who I felt that I looked at some of the other clinics in the areas, more established clinics around me, and saw these fantastic websites and thought, well, I can't have those. I can't afford those at this stage. I don't have the expertise to do those at this stage. I'm not experienced enough to have a website that offers so much to somebody at this stage in my career. This is complete bull. I was totally wrong. And as a result, I had a substandard website that I didn't invest perhaps not even any money in, so I didn't invest any time into it. I didn't make it work for me. And so as we go through the course, one thing we're going to talk about is how you can make your website professional, you can make it appear well, but more important than looking good is that it gives value. And when it gives value, it's going to give you value by giving you leads, by giving you information. So I took years and years and years to change my website. I just perceived my website to be almost a information leaflet online, so that if somebody was to look and check me out, they would see that I had a website and therefore I must have some sort of credibility. Completely the wrong attitude. What we want to do is make your website perfect from day one. The second example was around online booking and using an online database. Again, I saw other people doing this, but I thought, well, I wasn't a clinic that was of the size, of the stature to need this or require this. I could not be more wrong. It was probably the biggest changer for me in my clinic's growth when I moved on to online booking. Before that, I would just speak to people on the phone or speak to people over text message. And then when I was taking notes, I'd do them writing them down on my hand and perhaps even text people on the day of their appointment to remind them. I was using up so much time, so much energy going backwards and forwards to people. Can you do this time? No, but what about this time? I can't do that time. What about this time? Completely wasting my time, but also I wasn't giving a professional appeal to somebody, a professional view. How would that look? Somebody just texting me one-to-one, a friendly chat going backwards and forwards? That's not what I wanted to do. Then all of a sudden, once I introduced a good system, I'd wake up to confirmation of appointments. Somebody would be booking throughout the night, and this was a conversation that I hadn't needed to have. And actually, they booked at a time that suits them. They received an email that had video guidance about what to expect from appointment, what to do, and then they were going to start receiving communication from me automatically on the build up to their appointment. How much more professional is that? And so that was a much better thing for me to be doing to my business, but it took me absolutely years to get to that because I was suffering from imposter syndrome. So for this third example, I wanted to allow for a little bit of time to pass because I appreciate that the previous 2 examples of imposter syndrome were examples of when I was starting out my business. But imposter syndrome can affect us all at any time. And actually, it recently affected me. And I wanted to give you a live example of how that worked out. So when I started filming this video, it was just at the start of the coronavirus outbreak. And we'd shut the clinics. And all of a sudden, I had this unthinkable situation where all 3 of the clinics had shut down and I didn't know what to do. What I knew I had to do or could do was transition towards a virtual clinic. But the imposter syndrome hit. I didn't know this was something that I didn't feel that I'd done before. Did I have the experience to do it? I looked around and saw others that were doing it, and perhaps I thought, well, maybe can I do it as well as them? But what I did know this time is that I couldn't let imposter syndrome set in. But I knew that I had the systems, I had the skill set, I had the expertise to be able to deliver a valuable service to the clients who needed a virtual clinic. They couldn't get into the clinic, so they needed this. So I had this available to give them. So what I wanted to do was allow a period of time to pass from when I first filmed this video to let you know how that went and what happened as a result of me getting rid of my imposter syndrome. Well, in the first month of being shut, so during the April, I managed to do 52 virtual appointments. The second month, I managed to do 62 virtual appointments. So you can see this 20% growth. Now, during the third month, we reopened halfway through on the 15th. And so at this point of opening, I'd done 39 virtual appointments. So what you can be seeing is that the systems that I had in place were allowing this predictable pattern. Yes, I was doing less appointments, or the clinic was doing less appointments than we were used to, but the systems that we had in place were still allowing us to grow by at least 20% each time, month on month. And what would have continued to happen? Well, the clinic would have continued to grow. And what was happening was things that I hadn't even foreseen happening in the sort of more recent times, or the last months of doing the virtual clinic. I was seeing people in America, in Australia. I was getting this reach via the internet. The clinic had gone from being a local serving community-based clinic to serving the world. I got picked up by my governing body, BASRA, who produced an article on the success of the virtual clinic. So this would all happen because I didn't allow imposter syndrome to set in. I could have allowed it to set in. I could have just gone and left the clinic shut until we were allowed to reopen in the things that I knew to do well. But I didn't let imposter syndrome set in. What I did do was get to work, use the systems that I put in place, use the lessons that I learned over the last 12 years and that we're going to be teaching you throughout this membership program, to really put things in place that grow month on month. And then that just is what we call the compound effect of just keeps building and growing by doing the things that we know works well. So I wanted to give you that example because that is real life data. And what's been incredibly pleasant is that it allowed us to create a virtual clinic. Our fourth clinic was opened and we continue that today. Even though we are opening all three of our clinics, we are busier than we have ever been. We just did 56% growth upon this time last year. So we really have had our busiest record month, but we're still keeping the virtual clinic going. So again, so many benefits by ignoring imposter syndrome and knowing the habits, knowing the lessons, the skill set that I have in place to give a valuable service to the people that need it. And that's exactly what we're looking to do here. So essentially, I thought this was the perfect example because this happened in my 13th year of practicing. So it can still affect me and did affect me, but what I didn't do this time was let it have a long-term effect. I quickly got rid of those feelings of imposter syndrome and I got to work doing the things that I know well, and it benefited me hugely. And that's why getting rid of imposter syndrome and ignoring imposter syndrome, because it's a false syndrome, what you need to do is know your skill set, know your expertise, and know the lessons that I'm here to help you with as we make our way through this program.